for. Okay.
Hey, everybody. Welcome, welcome. I'm coming to you live from my new headquarters, which is my bedroom. It's been my new HQ for the last, this is day number 12 in the bunker. I've not left my place except for dog walks and one grocery store trip, which was fun. All right, we've got people joining, so we have hundreds of people on this call. Again, thanks everybody for joining. We're humbled to have you here. We'll give this a couple more minutes and we will get started at about 4 after. So welcome, welcome.
I assume everybody knows about the conference, right?
Yes, yes, absolutely.
Great.
All right, we're just about there. I think we can get started. Hey everybody, thank you so much for joining. We're honored to have Elissa Bruno here to do a session for us, and I want to get the intro out of the way and kind of give you the format and a quick introduction. I'm Scott Wayman. I'm the founder and CEO at Kangaroo Time. This is our second webinar. I think we have 2 planned for next week. We should have a little detail coming up on what those will be about, but all very, very like urgent, red hot topics. A few weeks back, we decided that as a company, we would put aside all of our customer acquisition goals, all of our sales functions, all of our marketing, and focus on helping our customers and not everybody we could help in the early education thought leader space. And we have been so humbled with the feedback that we've gotten. This is almost more fun than being a software company. We're glad to be there for you. And each of us at Kangaroo Time has gotten so much joy from being a part of this. We're here to help. Think of us for the next 6 months or however long this, I don't want to scare anybody, or till Easter. Think of us as a resource, and we hope to bring you as much content as we can and partner with great folks like Elissa Bruno. But I'm gonna step aside with my great amount of gratitude. Holly comes to us after we met in Buffalo a few years back. But let me get some housekeeping out of the way before I jump into the intro. Please join our Facebook group, KT Childcare Connect. We're sharing data, like real data, number of attendees, number of call-ins, real data from our platform, so it can help you make decisions. We're also trying to post as much thoughtful stuff on legislation and unemployment, everything requiring the tough decisions to be made. If you have questions, please enter them into the QA area. So you can see there's a QA tab at the bottom. And just to let you know, your microphones and cameras are off. Only panelists will be able to speak. We are recording this session and we will share it after the session. So I'm excited to introduce Holly. Elissa Bruno is an award-winning and best-selling author specializing in emotionally intelligent leadership and preventing legal risk, and is also an international keynote speaker. She served as an assistant attorney general for the state of Maine and assistant dean at the University of Maine School of Law. Holly, so privileged to have you here, and I'm going to let you take it over. Thanks for being with us.
Scott, thanks so much. And hello, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us. This is a time of trauma, and trauma is a scary word. So what we're going to do in our time together is look at trauma, not from the standpoint of, oh my God, I need to avoid it, this is so scary, but from the standpoint instead of befriending it. Now that might sound strange, but the truth is traumatic times affect our brains, and they tend to push us toward isolation. And when we isolate from each other, that causes all kinds of troubles. So this webinar and the other ones that Scott's talking about, they're all about connecting us. And it's about, in this heartfelt way, just sharing what's going on with us. And I really look forward to the questions at the end. And I want to say to you, thank you for making a difference. I'm a recovering attorney. And what I do now gives me so much more meaning than when I was an attorney, because we're working with children. We're helping children unfold to become who they're meant to be. And each step that you as a leader take, each decision you make, affects children directly and their families. So when we talk about trauma, I'm going to talk about me, about you, and about the children we're working with. So if you're ready, let's roll. I am going to say that I'm going to start with a story, and it's a true story. And it's a true story from another time when people were being isolated, people were being separated. And it's about a woman named Frida. She was an art teacher. And Frida was in a situation where she was with all these children who had been displaced. And she said to the people who were in charge, who weren't the friendliest of people, and that's an understatement, she said to them, look, I'll work with these children if you can just supply me with some art things that just give me some sketchbooks if you can, or just pencils or crayons or whatever. And they went along with her. Her name was Frida Dicker Brandeis. She was in the concentration camp called Theresienstadt. She worked with those babies and worked with those children and helped them express themselves so that they, in the moments when they were just playing, when they were just drawing, when they were just singing, when they were just putting on a play, they could be children again. And those children created art, which is now going around the world, the art of children who can recall from inside themselves when things were beautiful. These children drew pictures, and you'll see them if you go online, of themselves lying on their backs in the grass looking up at the clouds. They drew pictures of their home villages with green trees and people selling fruit on the streets, and it was beautiful. Now, here's the truth. All of those children had very short lives. They were executed. Frida herself was executed. And yet, in the time that she had with those children in those traumatic moments, she gave those children an opportunity to live as fully as they could. And that's a hard way to start out, but honestly, we are facing some hard things. Every day we read about people that have died. Every day we see that children can be really affected by this as much as the elders. I'm 74, and one of the invitations to me today is, if you will give it up, there'll be more space for the kids. It's a very strange time we live in, and yet here's my point. Trauma is our most rigorous guide. It is a guide, and it's a guide to meaning, to depth. It's a guide to connecting with each other in ways that are more powerful. And honestly, yes, as Scott said, my field is law. The book that I'll be talking with you about in the conference this summer is Managing Legal Risks in Early Childhood Programs. My other books are about leading on purpose and what you need to lead. They're all about emotional intelligence. But my latest book just came out this week. I'm holding it up. It's called Happiness is Running Through the Streets to Find You. And then the subtitle is Translating Trauma's Harsh Reality, Harsh Legacy into Healing. So I'm going to tell you right now that I am a survivor of severe child abuse. I am not alone. What I understand with the unpublished research about those of us in early childhood education, at least 58% of those of us who are early childhood professionals experience trauma ourselves. I was raised to look as if I were from the perfect family. I was not. My mother had mental health issues severely. My father did the best he could, but he was also a violent man. And I was raised in a terrifying household where I wasn't sure sometimes if I would survive. That's not drama, that's the truth. So I wrote this book to tell the truth about trauma and how we can learn from it, and how when children come to us that are troubled and they're jumping and they're running and they're climbing and they're kicking and they're biting, how we can work with them to hear their voices. So what we're going to do today is look at how to choose hope in unbearable circumstances. And I chose that title because, and I think you've got my article, because Frida Dicker Brandeis chose hope in an unbearable circumstance. And let's look at what hope might mean. Hope is, for you as a leader, claiming your true voice and your power, given everything that's going on in the world, to make a difference, especially given the trauma. And so hope to me means, how can I reclaim my sense of humor? Because I'm going to tell you the truth. We're going to look at brain neuroscience here. Humor is the quickest way to reset my brain from autonomic, where I can't think straight, to executive function, where I can go back to being creative and loving and optimistic. So we're going to look at the H in hope as humor. So claim humor, claim O for originality. How can I be true to myself and honest throughout this whole process? If I go into denial, which we'll talk about later, that is not doing me any good or anyone else any good. We know from the ACEs study that people who go through trauma have, our immune systems can be threatened and we can become more susceptible to diseases. I don't want us to do that. I don't want to do that. So we're going to look as being true to ourselves, as opposed to pretending like I'm good, everything's fine, because it isn't fine. It isn't. But we can make things as good as we can. The P in hope is for perspective. If I can invite you all to climb with me up to the balcony, we can look around and see a whole lot more that we couldn't see if we're in the midst slogging it out. And trust me, all the childcare leaders I've talked with around the country are in the middle of slogging it out, trying to figure out, how can I do this? How can I pay my staff? How can I, oh my God. And how can I help the parents? And how can I help the children? So that's the keeping of perspective. And the last part of hope is emotional honesty. Just read an article today that pulled it together, and it said the thing we need most in trauma is in traumatic times is for people to tell us the truth. And I add with that, the truth with love. Just give us the facts. Give us the facts so we can know how to live our lives. Give us the medical information. Give us the data. Give us all of that with honesty. That's, I think, why Winston Churchill was so popular during World War II. He just told the truth. This is what we've got. This is what we have to deal with. So in terms of leadership, I invite you, please have hope. Have hope. Have humor. Be true to yourself. Be original. Keep that perspective from the balcony when you need to. And remember to tell the truth with love, because it's the truth that sets us free. So let's look at our brains. You ready for this? This is our brain on trauma. And if you look at the right-hand side, you're going to see what the problem is. That red is blood. Blood is like the gas for our engines. It's like the fuel for the way our brains work. And if you look on the right, all of that energy, all of that fuel for the brain has drained right down into the amygdala gland. And I know you guys know about amygdala hijacks and what happens when we get scared. And here's the truth. As a leader, I can either be fear-based or I can be hope-based. And when I'm fear-based, when trauma gets to me and I get overwhelmed and I get scared, now I might act as if I'm doing just fine, thank you very much, but inside myself, I'm running on adrenaline. When that happens, I become a reactor to what's going on rather than an actor. When I find myself in that fear-based state, I need to recognize that what's going on in that right-hand side is me. The blood, the fuel, the energy, the spirit in my brain has been drained. And what happens is I can only go into one of those 4 reactive states. We all know from Freud about fight or flight, but what we also need to know is that there are 2 other responses that we have to fear and to trauma, and these come out of trauma research. The first thing we can do is we can respond with freeze, like a deer in the headlights. When trauma comes our way, we can just go, what's going on? That is not a healthy response either. And you know why we did that response? Because predators will not come after something that looks dead. When we freeze and the blood drains out of our face, we look like we're not a good source of food for the predator. But that ain't helping us when it comes to being leaders. So freeze, that's not going to work. But I know you know what I mean. Freeze, oh my God. The next thing is fawn. And this is really sad. What we do when trauma comes about is we people please. This is known as the Stockholm Syndrome, when people who were incarcerated, as was Frida, some of them try to befriend the guards, thinking that will keep them a little bit safer or maybe keep them alive. People pleasing is selling my soul so that I'm trying to align myself with somebody else who's going to take care of me. The truth is, every leader in early childhood education, we've got to take care of ourselves, our teams, and each other. So none of those responses works. And so if my blood is draining out of my brain, I can't think straight. I cannot be a strong leader. What do I want to do? I want to go from this side where the blood is draining to the other side where that red is flowing everywhere. And here's the truth. If you put your hand on your forehead, you will be touching the part of your head where behind that is where the executive function lies. The executive function is the most recent part of our brain development, and it gives us the nerve synapses to make the difficult decisions. It lets us see alternatives. It allows us to be creative. It even allows us to be optimistic. And it also contains a spiritual component. You know, Howard Gardner talked about the different intelligences we have. He talked about spiritual intelligence, that ability to see deeper into the meaning of things and to make decisions based on what is good for everybody. So what we need to do here, bottom line, trauma is going to push us into the corner of fear. When I'm fear-based, I can't think straight. The blood drains. So the question is, how can I get back into being in my full power? And here's the truth. The quickest way to get there is to use humor. If I can laugh at myself, if we can laugh with each other, unless we're laughing at another person, we can quickly jumpstart ourselves back to the executive function. All of a sudden it's like, okay, all right, okay. It gives us perspective. So let me give you this quote from my book, and it's no accident there's a diamond up there, because trauma pushes us, rubs us, shoves us, kicks us, and if we go with the flow and learn from it and bring our best selves to it, we get as sharply honed as a diamond. So here's what I'm saying to you about my experience as a child who survived incest, who survived all kinds of other physical, mental abuse. Trauma is my most rigorous guide. Trauma is my unchosen but compelling pathway to a life, and I can't see that, a life of meaning, I think, an uplifting appreciation of beauty, and a deeply anchored conviction to make the world better for every child. So trauma doesn't have to be this huge awfulness. If I accept this is what I've got, I can do what Carrie Fisher said. Remember Princess Leia? I can take my broken heart and I can turn it into art. And trust me, leadership is an art and a science. So let's break these down. And first off, I want to share this. I love this. I wrote an article for Exchange Magazine when things were starting to go awry on the borders and children were being put in, being separated from their families. And that broke my heart, as I'm sure it broke yours. And so I quote this poem, and I love it. It's, I invite you to look at it. May I have the courage today to postpone my dream no longer, but do at last what I came here for and waste my heart on fear no more. When Frida Dicker Brandeis was in that concentration camp and she looked around and saw these children suffering and said, I can do something about it, she faced her fear and she made a world of difference to those children. So that's about going from the I can't do anything side of my brain to the, all right, I have choices side of my brain. That's about going from being fear-based to hope-based. And let's look at hope, okay? Let's look at hope from the standpoint of humor. Humor. Just think for a moment, if you will, who on earth cracks you up and makes you laugh? And I know you're probably going to say there's a baby in my program that does that. Well, okay, think of that baby. You don't see her today, but think of her. Because humor and laughter help our brains recover from trauma. Because humor and laughter, they trigger that executive function. And what they do also is when we get from fear into hope through humor, our prefrontal cortex lets us come up with new ideas, lets us come up with generosity, lets us come up with a vision, which we will have lost. Guess what? There's a study in Harvard Business Review that talks about the best leaders are those of us that can laugh at ourselves. Now, why would that be? Well, it's pretty obvious. Number one, I've got 1,000 things to laugh at every day. You might too. And guess what? People see us as leaders. If we can laugh at ourselves, that means we have perspective. That means we can get out of ourselves and see the world around us. So humor gives us hope for many reasons, and it also gives our staff hope. And here's, I'm going to read this to you quickly, you know, like they do in commercials. So play and humor, they are the brain's jungle gym. And this comes from a neuroscientist who says play selectively stimulates nerve growth. So we're actually growing our brains in the amygdala where emotions are processing the dopamine, and then if you get an erection that lasts more than 4 hours, you need help. So if you got that, honey, even if you laughed with that, and if you did, I hope you did, if you did, that is releasing endorphins. That's the great benefit of humor. So hope, humor, remember that. The more we can laugh, the more healing we can do. I used to work with a professor at the University of Maine where I taught for years, and he used to give his students a pencil. Remember those old-fashioned pencils that were made of wood and they had yellow in color and they had an eraser on one end? What he would do with them is to say, look, these are clean, don't worry. Put it in your mouth. Don't worry, my hands are clean too. Bite on it. And I'm going to time you for a minute. And actually, you can see the clock here, so you don't have to worry. And just, you know, let's just keep going. You don't have to say anything. And they were going, oh, Lord, what's he doing now? But guess what? By smiling, because that's what that forced children, the students to do, by smiling for a minute, the endorphins started to get released. And before they knew it, the whole classroom was upbeat. So honey, we can do these things for ourselves. That's like a quick way to do it. But the truth is I can be sitting in traffic and I can say, and remind myself, just do it for a minute, Holly, Elissa, and you're going to be better. So look, the expert on adults and play, because adults need to play just as much as children. In fact, when I ask people what's the opposite of play, adults usually say work. Stuart Brown says depression. If we can't laugh, if we can't play, we're going to get down and depressed. So look what he says. He says that when people are able to find that sense of play, when we can find the sense of play in our work, we become truly powerful figures. And you know that. You know that. When your team can sit at a staff meeting and laugh together, they bond. When they can laugh together, they want to come to work. When they can laugh together, the children feel that because we are the children's curriculum. If we can't laugh and enjoy being with the children, they're going to get that. And we all have mirror neurons inside of us that soak up the feelings of people around us. So for me as a leader, it's my job to maintain my perspective and my humor, and that makes me more powerful as a leader. I hope that makes sense. So let's look at the next one here. The next part of hope, H, humor, O, originality. And I love this. You guys all know Queen Latifah. But what you might not know about her is she's dealing with trauma. What she has done is taken her hometown of Newark, New Jersey, and she is building cooperatively all of this housing with people so they can get out of traumatic situations and raise their children in a place where the children can experience joy. So Queen Latifah said, look, be bold, be brave enough to be your true self. Now, Carl Jung talked about our true self, and what was he saying? He was saying that's who we came to the earth to be. That's who we are when we kick our shoes off at the end of the day. And honestly, the research on leadership and emotional intelligence says, be true to yourself and people will respect you as a leader. It doesn't mean they're going to love everything you do, but they will respect you because they know you're authentic. They can tell in a heartbeat if we're not being authentic. It's like that stuff that says, you know, don't lie because then you have to remember what you said. The thing about being my true self is if I'm just true to myself and I know that I'm perfectly imperfect, then I can do things and say things and be much more vulnerable. Brene Brown writes a lot about vulnerable leadership. And here's the truth. When I'm able to own my vulnerability and say, you know what you just said is something I really need to think about. I'd like to think about that overnight and give it due respect. And I'll get back to you tomorrow morning. And we'll meet at, how about 8 o'clock in my office tomorrow morning? I'll make sure your class is covered. That being true and being honest, that is the true self, that is the original part of hope, because I've always got that with me and I don't have to be perfect. And here's something else. To live through trauma, children and adults, to be original, to be true to ourselves, we need to do 4 functions. And this comes from the Life is Good Foundation. I don't know if you've worked with them, but they do they have something called Playmakers, where they go around the country and work with groups of children who are traumatized and work with teachers to help us work with traumatized children. And they've determined that 4 factors, are essential to these children and to the adults. So I invite you to look at yourself right now today in this time of the epidemic and ask yourself about each one of these 4 factors. If you can check these off or move toward checking them off and say, yeah, I can do that today, then you're going to feel more powerful as a leader. You're going to feel less the victim of this circumstance, which is a terrifying circumstance. When I look at my homeland, Bella Italia, look at all the people. Oh my God, it's very, very sad. It's very sad. So what I need to do is to focus on hope. Hope when it comes to inner control, to feel in our best selves, to feel true to ourselves. We have to feel like we have the freedom to make choices. Now, our choices are limited. We can't go outside. We can't be with people. However, how many of you have started all kinds of online things? I've got 5 different online meetings going on each week. How many of you have connected with people through Zoom or FaceTime, whatever you do? We are exercising our freedom to choose to make things as good as we can. So if we feel, people get very depressed and feel like there's no point in living if their freedom to choose goes away. So please remember, you have choice. Not about everything, but about enough things that you can still maintain your hope. Second factor we need is joy, which is to do what children do. We need to live in a state of wonder, curiosity, and awe. When I'm my best self with people I'm not supervising right now, but when I had programs of my own to supervise, I knew I was my best self when I could be with someone who knew how to push my buttons, yeah, and I could inside myself say, Lord, help me here. I want to smack her. But the truth was, instead of that, I would say, help me please see what I can learn by being with this person. And if I could bring a new heart and new eyes, then I could live in awe, curiosity, and wonder rather than judgment. One of the things that people are most terrified of is being judged as inadequate. If we suspend our judgment to just listen wholeheartedly, you guys all know all about active listening, but listening from the heart, which is to say, I'm not judging you. I'm here to hear how you see this world. And then we can create more hope together. So hope is about authenticity. Authenticity is the O for originality. We need inner control, which is freedom to choose. We also need a sense of joy. We also, above all, in this time of isolation, we need connection. We need connection. And I've talked with many people who say, you know, it's easy for me to isolate because I know how to do that. 51% of us in this country are introverts. We know how to be by ourselves. The truth is we are communal people. We need to be in connection. We need to hear each other and sense each other and check in on each other and care about each other. And so connection is part of this authenticity. How can we hold one another in safety, and in love? And the last piece about hope, which is what the Life is Good Foundation says that we all need. We need hope that we can believe what Robert Frost said, which is the best way out is through. If I can face this trauma instead of pretending it's not happening, if I can face this trauma instead of self-medicating, which I'm real good at, I can self-medicate with adrenaline, with cortisol. I can get myself all pumped up and, oh my goodness, I got to do this, I got to do that. And then I'm exhausted, but I'm not really facing what's going on. The best way out is through, for me, means telling myself the truth. This is scary. My Uncle Arthur died in Rochester, New York. I was going to get on a plane so that I could go and honor him and honor his family and give a hug to my Aunt Conchetta. I had to say to myself, Holly, Elissa, you can't go. You can't go. You can't go. And I was sad, and I'm still sad about that. But that is facing the truth of this trauma that we're in. That is making the best of it. I wrote a very loving letter to my Aunt Conchetta, and I've been doing other things to just honor my uncle and the fact that that whole generation of Sicilians has gone. So that's it, okay? The second part of hope is be true to yourself, to be authentic, to be original. And hey, Fred Rogers nails it all the time, doesn't he? He says, look, nobody else can live the life you live. And even though no human being is perfect, we always have the chance to bring what's unique about us to life. And I love, because we're the children's curriculum, when children see me grow, oh my gosh, Miss Holly, you can do that now. I said, oh yeah, Jessica, I worked so hard. I dropped it so many, oh my God. They love that. I love that. So leaders need to keep growing. It's like we are endless lifelong learners. Now let's look at perspective. Perspective is a third part of hope. And this is again what we need to face trauma, because trauma can be this all-encompassing threat. Trauma is literally a life-threatening event or a life-threatening series of events that puts us into our autonomic system. So all we can do is be hypervigilant. All we can do is be on guard. All we can do is surviving. Surviving people cannot live fully. We need to get back to and help other people get back to where we can live fully and be in the day regardless of what's going on, or perhaps because of what's going on. So look, P is for perspective. And I love this because you guys know Eleanor Roosevelt. She faced a lot of stuff, and her life was threatened. And she said, look, we gain strength, courage, and confidence by every experience in which we stop to do what? Yeah, stop, turn around, and look at fear in the face. Now, it's taken me a long time to get to this. I was really good at running. I would run from the fear that I had inside of myself because of having been raised in an unsafe environment. I would run and I would achieve. I would become an overachiever, and that would help me feel good, but I would keep running to the next achievement or the next degree or the next honor. You know, I'm not saying that was a bad thing, because we all want to do our best, but what I'm saying is I had to stop, hold still, turn around, and look fear in the face and say, okay, I'm going to stop running. You're here, I'm here, I'm scared, I'm really scared, but I have a position that I need to do. I need to do something for the sake of children, and I'm not going to let you stop me. So somehow I'm going to ask for help. I'm going to research everything I can, but fear, I'm going to look you in the face. And my Uncle Arthur, God bless him, he said this thing to me when I got married. He said, in Italian, he said, actually Sicilian, he said, well, getting married is like walking into the mouth of a wolf. And turning around to face fear is like walking into those jaws. It's scary. But that gives us perspective. And to put that more optimistically, I just picture myself up on a balcony. I'm speaking to you right now from a balcony because I can look out and I can see, I can get perspective on things. And here's what perspective gives us, no matter what comes our way. And look at this, how bad it is. The dark thought comes our way, feeling ashamed comes our way, evil comes our way. What Rumi invites us to do is to meet them at the door, laughing, and invite them in. Come on in, come on in. Be grateful for whoever comes, because each has been sent as a guide from beyond. Well, I love that. Every trouble that comes my way, the fact that I had heart disease and had to have surgery, that was a gift. I had to learn how to trust people, to be able to lie flat on my back and be out for 5 hours and trust people. That was powerful. So when you think about it, the hardest things that you have faced are also the things that have given you the most wisdom. And I want to now look with you at this. Here's the process of trauma. When trauma comes our way, we start in the upper left-hand corner of denial. We don't want to think it's happening, it's not happening, we don't have a problem, we're good. Okay? The next thing we do is we isolate. Like, we don't want to talk with people about it, so we isolate. Notice how we are dropping down. And the next thing we start to do is we start to feel guilty because we know something's going on, but hey, we don't want to face it. Or we feel ashamed of ourselves because we're not being leaders like we ought to be. And then we start bargaining like, hey, God, you know, if I do this, will you do that? None of this is helpful. This is all being in a victim state, and it drops us right down into despair. So if you look at the left-hand column, what happens if I let trauma control me? I become fear-based. My self-esteem as a leader goes down. The problem gets bigger because I'm not doing anything to solve it. And I become a victim, and I'm a reactor to life, not an actor. Look, what I need to do is turn around, face fear in the face. And you know what? I have a right to get angry, because anger gives me the power to say, I'm angry about this. I don't like this. I want to be doing what I do well. And then that empowers me to finally say, all right, I get it. I accept it. And now, within the choices, the limited choices I have, I'm going to take action. And that leads us to being hope-based. Those are hope-based leaders who can say, I know my world is constricted. I know trauma is coming down. I know I may lose somebody. I know I don't have income coming in. I know my teachers that I care so deeply about are scared to death. I know all of these things, and there's some things I don't know yet, but I'm not going to go into denial when the truth comes out about them. When I can acknowledge that trauma is what it is, and I can say to myself, okay, here's what I can do. I can't help the whole world, but I can work in my area of the world and do what I can. So I become, instead of a victim, I become a hero. And the more everyday way to say that is, I become an actor. Now, an actor rather than a reactor. So I get out of that scared part of my autonomic part of my brain, and I go into my executive function, which is to say, I can make a difference. Now look, here are the opportunities when trauma comes our way. Every traumatic situation offers us a chance to say, stop in the name of love. I am going to make a difference here. So if I'm in denial, or if you're in denial about something, what can I do? I can look at myself and say, sweetheart, you gotta face this. You gotta face this. I just went for 2 tests before the hospital shut down because I said, you know what? I got some challenges. I think I better go get the information. And I felt so much relieved when I did. So if I'm in denial, just face it. If I'm isolating, just reach out to one person, even if it's my dog. I swear, start hugging on the dog. Now I lost my dog on July 23rd. So now I'm like instant, I text, I have all these people I'm texting to. If I feel guilty, you know what the remedy for that is instead of like going down the tube of despair? The remedy for that is for me to own my part and say, you know what, I make an amend to you. I made a mistake. I hear you. Here's what you were saying. I was wrong, and here's what I'm going to do to make this right. But doesn't mean I need to own the other person's part, just mine, okay? And guilt, that's about owning it. Despair, when I get despairing, that's when I become really spiritual. And I just say, I don't know what to do or how to do it, but I know I need help. And so whoever the divine is, whatever you can do, please help me. Then as you noticed, we get back, remember this whole thing, this whole scale, we go from despair, which is where we need to ask for help. Then we get to anger and then acceptance. Okay, so when I'm angry, that gives me clarity. You have been righteously angry about things and you say, hey, wait a minute, this is wrong, this is an injustice. And so I can get clear about what I can do. Anger can be productive, and not unless I use it to abuse. And the last thing is I get acceptance, and when I'm calm, then I can take action. And then finally, instead of denying, I have moved all the way to action, and I can celebrate. Even today, in this worst case scenario, we can celebrate. So let's get to the last part of hope, and that is emotional clarity. There's a fog out there. We don't know where the germs are. We don't know if we're infected. The best thing is to act as if we're all carrying the virus. And it's hard. And here's what I've come to see. It's not just about telling the truth to others and myself, but it's telling the truth with love. It's telling the truth with compassion. I don't mean sugarcoating. I don't mean pretending or even doing that sandwich method, which we used to do years ago. I mean telling the truth with the understanding that this is affecting all of us on a very, very deep level. And one way in which we can have emotional authenticity and be emotionally honest, one way is to look at the messages we read to children in children's books. I love those. Children's books are like the Underground Railroad. There were all kinds of messages that the Underground Railroad did to help people know, well, here's where you go next, even though we can't say anything out loud. We have to pretend that you're not hiding here. So we'll put up a quilt on the line, and that quilt will say, go that way. Or we'll sing a song like, wade in the water, and you'll know that tomorrow you're going to have to cross the river. So children's books are, when you look at it, and I invite you to think of your favorite children's book. Each children's book is a message of hope. It's a message of how to live through trauma and through hard times. It's a message about how to grow up when things are not exactly as we want them to be. So look, I'll know this. This is the Petit Prince. The Little Prince. It's only with the heart that one can see rightly. What's essential is invisible to the eye. Truth is, guys, emotional intelligence is required for leadership, and that's the ability to read people as well as reread books. It's not enough to just have high IQ points. You guys probably have tons of IQ points, but IQ points do not help us understand what's going on with people. Dr. Daniel Goleman said, in fact, that only 20% of our life decisions are made requiring IQ points. Everything else requires the leadership ability to read people, to understand, to have patience, to have these virtues of hope. So look, here's what Fred Rogers says. He says, when children are frightened, and we know children that are frightened, if adults get frightened, This is what they need from us. And many times throughout their lives, children will feel the world has turned topsy-turvy. It's not our smile that's going to help them feel secure. It's knowing that love can hold many feelings, including sadness, including anger, including resentment, including greed, all of these things. That love, when we love someone, we can love that person with all her feelings, and that child can count on us. They can count on us to be the people they love to be with until the world rights itself and actually beyond. That's what hope's about. So, oh my goodness, I'm going to end on time. If you guys knew me, I don't end on time, but I really want you guys to have times for questions. So let me end with a couple more slides here. And Scott, we've got, I think we got about 4 minutes. So if I end early, we can even do more questions. But I love this. Emily Dickinson, and just down the state in Massachusetts, she was made fun of. She was seen as weird. She was different, and she left us from that perspective, from her originality, and from her emotional clarity. She left us with a lot of information about hope. And I love this one. I have it memorized in my heart. Hope is the thing with feathers that perches in the soul and sings the song without words and never stops at all. So leaders, what I say to you is hold hope in your heart at this trying, traumatic time. Yeah, it's awful. Yeah, it's scary. But hope will get us all through, because when we keep our eyes on the prize, there's still a prize, and we can keep looking up. We're not looking down out of desperation. So you know this, another children's book we all know. This is, I think, Christopher Robin. You are braver than you think and stronger than you can imagine. I mean, I love that. I love that. And look how different. This is a message to me of hope. I'm just me. I've got all kinds of, I've made all kinds of mistakes. I've messed up. I got fired from a job. I have switched careers. I have made, I got a lot. And yet the truth is, all of that stuff helps me be a better leader because I can sit down and learn from it. If I'm covering myself with shame, I can't. But I love this. See, this message is look in the mirror and look for your strengths. Whereas, how many of us feel like this right now? That cat, it's inevitable. It's inevitable. That cat's going to hit the water. We're all going to hit the bottom at some point. We're all going to hit it down time. And yet I had a cat like that. And I had a 2-year-old little boy, not my boy, but a friend visiting my son, Sebastian, tossed the cat, Willie, in the lake. And that's exactly what Willie looked like. But Willie didn't succumb. He hated water, but he started swimming, man, and he got out of there and he ran. He ran. So look, we have a choice. We can be this way. We can be this way. And here's my last slide. And that's that trauma's demons, trauma's monsters, and trauma's dark nights. We could see them as horrible and we could pretend they're not there and we could just hunker down and just take care of our own. There's nothing wrong with taking care of our own. But I believe as leaders, and I know you're all doing this, we also have a bigger ripple effect to put out to our communities how we can help the people in the community. Just like Scott said, he's turned now from looking at sales, he's turned to looking at helping. That will make the biggest difference because that positive statement of, I love you guys and I want you to do well, we can't help but feel that. So in my last minute, I'm going to say this. Trauma and the demons that it brings up in us, because one fear sparks another fear, sparks another fear. Trauma helps us become the best we can be. And we're all here on earth as soulful seekers. We're looking to have how to have a better life and how to leave the world a better place. Trauma helps us embrace the difficulties. I can't avoid them. If I do, it doesn't help. Trauma helps us love our perfectly imperfect selves. That's a great thing because if I can't love myself, it's hard for me to care truly for other people. And lastly, Trauma helps me connect to the joy, the beauty in ourselves and one another. And I want you to look at this picture as I end, as the questions are coming in. And Scott, I've got it's time right now. That's my mother. That's my beautiful mother, and that's me. And my mother, as I said, had mental illness. And I looked at the cameraman and I said, please get me out of here. Look at my little hand. I'm saying, get me out of here. And I didn't know at that time that the trauma that I was going through was going to help me become the many and varied person, crazy and funny and whatever that I am today. So thanks, guys. Scott, we are good. Thank you for letting me share with you. And I wish you so much good coming out of this trauma.
Thank you, Holly. No, I think so much of what you said resonated with me. One of the first things, and I think we've got 10 minutes for questions, so let them roll in. I'll kind of get one started. So one of the things that we've noticed, our company has such a strong sense of community, and our leadership team is trying to figure out the cost levers to pull and how we act as stewards for our company. But in all that, the fellowship that we typically have and the togetherness, it was almost just stripped away immediately. So we've started doing silly things like jumping on conference calls in the morning and answering trivia with each other. And we always have 4:30 beers in our office. Any of you are more than welcome to join us in Buffalo. Love to drink beer with you. So we're doing that remote. Any thoughts on prioritizing that fellowship and that togetherness, and what does that do for your team?
Okay, so excellent question, and I'm so glad you're doing what you're doing. And when the ban clears, I'll come up for beers. Look, we all know Maslow's hierarchy of needs, and he says that the basic things like having a roof over our head and food, that's essential. But there are other theories that say community is the most important thing we need. And I've been studying all about tribes, and the truth is we all need daily, if not momentary, interaction with each other. And it's hard for those of us that are extroverted and we're physical and we can't touch. So I believe that, and I'd love to hear from people that are listening, what are you doing to stay in touch with your staff? What are you doing to reach out to people? I know people that are like, everything's online now. I mean, they're just really connecting. Or we meet at a park and stand 6 feet away and we take a walk and we talk at 6 feet away. What we need to do, Scott, you're exactly right, is to gather together, because we don't make things, the lone wolves don't survive. We need each other to get through this. So I'd love to hear what people are doing.
I think Holly is we're getting a bunch of thank yous. Patricia, you're so welcome. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you, everybody.
I think one of the big ones for me is gratitude. So waking up each day and not forcing myself. It's not like they're hard to pull out, but but 3 things each morning that I have gratitude for. And I think in times like this, we're so overwhelmed and focused on the trauma and the negative. It does something to your brain. It's a Control Alt Delete reset. It's such such a nice thing to do for yourself and for the team.
Scott, you nailed it. That picture of the brain that I did, we need to continuously reset our brain from that hopelessness state to the hopeful state. And oh my goodness, I just forgot what I was going to say. Oh, I was going to ask you, what's one thing that you're grateful for, Scott, when you woke up this morning? What was one thing?
So I have the most supportive wife on the planet. Those of you that don't know, we moved our company to Buffalo, and my wife still lives in Los Angeles. And I wake up to the most beautiful text every morning. So that's the overwhelming thing for me.
That's beautiful.
And I have such gratitude to work with customers. Our customers are the gold of the earth. This is my second company. So working with people that build bodies, souls, and minds.
Yes.
It's such I jet out of bed every day.
Scott, don't forget that thing about the soul. I believe that we're all, I'm not talking religiously here, I'm just talking spiritually. I believe that we all are souls and flesh, and we're meant to help each other out, not hurt each other. And so this crisis gives us the opportunity to find new ways to help each other. In my city here nearby Boston, we've got food that's being given out to people because kids were going to the public schools, not just for education, but because that's the only place they got food. So people are doing that. And I want to say one thing that to align with what you just said, Scott. I used to, at the end of the day, when I was driving myself, I would ask myself at the end of the day, Holly, Elissa, what did you accomplish today? I don't do that anymore. I ask myself, what was a moment in which I feel like God touched my life today? Or what is a moment in which I felt joy, or I saw something beautiful, or I felt something beautiful? And that's when my whole world stops in that moment. So Scott, are there questions from people that we can answer? Because I know people got to leave in about 4 minutes.
You know, I just wanted to kind of go through these.
Okay.
Holly, I'm a full-time assistant. Do you see the last question? My full-time assistant, my husband, we are connecting fine. I'm working hard at keeping my daycare families, our tribe, connected in many ways. I would love for you to have an open conversation with how other family daycare providers are connecting with their families.
Thank you so much. Thank you, thank you, family child providers, because you do it all. You do it all. You are so impressive. I mean, I'm continuously impressed by all the things you do. And this has always been tough. Legally, this has been tough. Like if you have a threat, like a parent were to, God forbid, go have a problem and draw a knife on you, what are you going to do? You are by yourself in your home. So legally, we look at that. How can we find ways to quickly get other people in connection? I would say, and you know this better than I do, but family providers, stay in touch. If you have to close, if you're not essential and you have to close, stay in touch with your family in every which way. I know what you could do. I love this. I'm watching these every day. Teachers are, and direct home providers are creating videos of themselves doing their daily lesson plan. So they start they just video it in a Zoom kind of thing, and the children are all going like this. So that's one thing that really helps. And the other is, if you've got a network of family providers, they're all around the country. If you're part of that group, stay in touch with their online resources, call people. And also, if you can, if you're still able to have the kids there, get them outside as much as you can, even in Buffalo, because the snow, I'm sorry, I don't mean to stereotype Buffalo, even though I'm from upstate New York.
Not disparaging at all. We really accept that our weather is pretty brutal. So
I got it, honey. Anyway, yeah, take care of yourselves. Do whatever you can online with the children. And if you're able to have children with you, everything you could do with them outside, so important. That sunshine is healing. Yeah, okay. I hope that helped. Anything else, Scott?
no, I think we wrap here. And in fact, on the humor, I couldn't go through with it. But if any of you saw the national news story of the girl that went to the restroom and forgot her camera was on, I was gonna pop back on while sitting on my toilet just to give everybody a laugh. But I thought, too far. That's too far. And my HR killed me. Got my pants down sitting on the toilet. No, Holly, deepest gratitude. The content and the feedback we're getting here in the Q&A is just...
I'm just able to see it, Scott. I'm so grateful. Thank you.
So we'll wrap here. Everybody, thank you for joining. We will be having some content next week. We're gonna reach out and find an expert that can translate all the stimulus information that's releasing last night and throughout the day today. Mm-hmm. Our goal is to have a session next week with an employment specialist or an attorney. So we will put that out as soon as we get there. As soon as we get it set, and we're trying to do these things rapidly, but we want to get you the information on loans, finance, stimulus funding that is there for you. I mean, this was a $2 trillion bill that was passed, and this is momentous. So, and we really think child care owners and leadership should be a big focus here. So we'll be doing everything we can to get you the data so that you're prepared. And Genevieve, what is our next scheduled session?
So our next scheduled session is going to be on Monday at 2 p.m. Eastern time. We have Hani Wilshansky, and she has a great message for us talking about culture and morale during this time. So stay tuned for a formal registration and invite. We're going to get that out tomorrow. And I know a lot of people know Hani and are familiar with her. So stay tuned for that.
All right, we're so grateful for all of you. And please, guys, join the Facebook group. It's called KT Childcare Connect. We'll be sharing as much data as we can get back to you as quickly as we can, and reach out to us if we can be of any help with speaking to lobbyists, what's going on in Capitol Hill, the stimulus funds, and first and foremost and most important, your well-being. But thank you so much all for joining us. We're honored and humbled to have you all on this call.
Thank you.
All right, thanks guys. Be well, be safe.
And be kind to you. Thanks, Scott. See you the next time.
Yeah, thanks so much. We'll see
Thanks.
you.
Bye, everyone.
Thanks, sweetie. So before we